Hey everyone, welcome back to another exciting episode of Tech Productions. Today, Bankrupt joined once again by Jake and Nick.
Yep.
Howdy, howdy.
And today's matchup is, well, it's me versus Jake. Jake has brought us Green Cooler, and he does have the draft box cards because he would have bought them ahead of time because our locals also didn't get them. And I think I've played every deck that needed to be played, so I was like, I've been thinking of playing Stormfist again, and I brought it out. Keep in mind, there's buttons down below, there's descriptions and the links and whatnot. Just check it all out. All right. Cooler.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
Well,
sorry, I was saying I don't remember you really too big in this game into this deck. Austin was the one who always kind of brought it.
this was one of the decks out of Ultimate Squad, I think it was, that I was kind of interested in playing, but while Austin was the main champion of the deck, I kind of like set in the set this deck on the back burner. And now that we're at that time in between formats, I thought it would be kind of cool to bring it back. And then they printed dash pack stuff for it, so that just made it even more enticing to play. And most of the dash pack stuff was really cheap, and some of it is pretty strong. I'm sure we'll talk about it later.
So you just did your classic, I'm going to make this better and win with it.
Yeah,
That's what Jake does a lot of times. He'll take what someone else has done and go like, you did it wrong. Here's how you really do it.
Well, when you play against something, you can kind of see like the holes in the armor, or like, man, if they had just done this, they would have put me away. So it's really easy for me to tune a deck up after I've played against it a few times and kind of put my own personal spin on it. But I always say, good artists copy and great artists steal. So you can determine for yourself which of those you put me in.
So here you charge the King Cold, which is the one of the new draft pack cards. It is incredibly good. It can initially just be one energy for a dual blocker, and on its blocks, it's comboing a card from your drop. I think it has to be at least 5k, but still, like, even though the core deck has very low cards, the deck now has resources such as the Cooler Unison, which allows you to put any green card into your Z energy. Now, granted, it is a burst one effect, and you may end up bursting that card. But what's the chance of that happening? At least twice in a match. But the battle cards you do hang on, you can just combo them, put them in the drop, and hang onto them for this blocker, which is just a 25k just for blocking.
Yeah. The King Cold is really solid, especially because this deck has difficulty building Z energy, and that is one of the better ways to do it. And with this one drop cooler and being able to play a Unison off of my leader swing here, I'm able to get my leader swing, a 15k on the one drop, and then 15k dual attack on this cooler Unison. And I could have put one of these green cards in my drop area into my Z off of this. And at the table, I kind of considered that a mistake, but this deck does have a lot of effects that require Unisons to be in your drop area. So maybe this early in the game, it wasn't a bad choice to leave that Nyes there.
Yeah, because it's on its play if it has X amount of markers, right?
Yeah, if it's got 3 or more when it comes into play, and it's got Empower 3. So basically, if it comes into play, you will get to place a card from your drop area into the Z. Unfortunately, that happens before the burst one on the +1 effect. But you shouldn't be playing this card as your first Unison anyway. I think that's pretty obvious by the way it's designed.
I will say, was not expecting such an explosive turn 2 from you, and putting me down to 3 life just from that point was rough.
Yeah, I was a little bit worried about making your hand size so large, but this deck really kind of wants to end things on turn 3 or 4 anyway, even though it has some more control-y elements to it. The new dash pack cards really push it into a more aggressive play style, and I think overall at this point in the game, I'm not really too worried about my position. But putting you down to 3 life really early was a concern, considering how many cards you draw with Stormfist.
Yeah, because now I'm in a situation where, and for those of you who don't remember Stormfist or just weren't around when that card first came out, it's a promo card, and on its attacks, you take a life, and if you do, you draw 1 card. And then when you awaken, you only resend 1 energy. That's because on its backside, or I guess its front side, on swing, it draws you a card, and at the end of your turn, it draws you a card. And I did miss it in that moment, but Jake in a second will walk me. Actually, it's still my turn. But Jake in a second will let me get that back when after I pass my turn.
It's kind of the whole point of playing this leader. And recently, we had a conversation. I don't remember if it was in the group chat or in person about there not being a lot of generic leaders in the game right now. And Stormfist Krillin is a really good option if you like that gameplay style, because there's a lot of good generic blue cards right now that support it. So
it's a deck that, in my opinion, that once you get to the awakened side, which on average will take to turn 2, especially if you go second, for sure turn 2. But from that point on, as long as you're playing cards that either cycle or draw you cards, the leader will draw you 2 every turn on its own, which is great. And even like some cards will lock down a leader, you'll still get the second auto, so you're still getting a draw from the leader, which is great. Speaking of cards that draw you cards, I had to think on the play for the Piccolo, because on Piccolo's play, I have an auto which either pulls the pan from my deck or I give it the card barrier. And I almost went to go for the pan when you said Piccolo is good. And I paused. I was like, oh yeah, you got a Unison already in play with so many markers that if I play the pan, you could just turn around and snipe the Piccolo right afterwards. So I chose to give it barrier. And that's what that marker represents, that it has barrier until the end of his turn.
Yeah, which ended up being really solid for you because this Salza can't KO it either. And with the hand size differential you've built, you're able to defend pretty easily here and play a lot of the more punishing floodgate type effects that blue has early on in this turn. And it kind of made things difficult for me on like how I wanted to sequence my own turn, and I ended up, I think, making a few mistakes here.
Yeah, when you swung with your leader, I think you paused like crap. I have to take the life if I want to establish anything. I was like, yeah, and I even asked you, did you want to take it back so you could just awaken first? But you stuck to it.
Yeah, I think that to me at this stage, I'm either trying to rip cards out of your hand or use what little resources I've got left as an advantage. And I think here I should have drawn a card from the old Unison going to the drop area, but I just didn't catch it. Like I said, I was really kind of thrown off by all of the early usage of cards like Bean and this 1-drop negate here. So I was struggling to find my flow on this turn. I think it's pretty obvious.
Yeah, a lot of the strategy for this defensive turn for me was if I establish Bean right away, most of your cards can't hit my leader then, because most of the Unisons are at 15k. The Frieza though will become a 20k, I think. And then having the negate, which I only play as a one of, like, because I have a lot of cards in this deck that draw me cards. I wanted to toolbox a lot of cards that don't get a lot of scene anymore. I even play like the Game of 1s and Game of 2s from set 19 because they interact with certain cards I can play on the board, like the Gohan Piccolo or even the Infiltrator on the board right now, because they are 1 energy costs in the later games. And then if I have one on board, the hero effect will pop, and I'll get to draw more cards just for playing them. But the idea of playing this negate was like, if you swing my leader, it just gives my leader another 5k boost for a turn.
Yeah. And it ends up being really punishing when I'm coming at you with a lot of dual attack.
Mm-hmm.
Here I combo with this, even though I only get this combo when I block, we catch it before the battle is over, so it ends up not meaning anything. Yeah, see, I'm rereading the card right here, and I was like, oh yeah, I don't get to do that.
Yeah, because it's part of the auto, and I was debating about negating, and I was like, I think I'm going to negate. And you're like, okay, I'll stick the auto, so you put it there, and you're like, oh, I don't get this auto. I'm like, oh, I'm not going to negate if you're okay with that, then.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, that's fine.
I did expend a sense of being here to protect the Piccolo. Um, and it gives more energy if I need to continue playing on your turn. But then I think you just pass, like, oh, kind of felt like a waste. I could have just comboed a card off instead to protect the Piccolo, but it happens. You did burn one of my sense of beans by doing that.
Yeah, I think my overall strategy going into that turn was to try and push for that 3-drop Frieza and then awaken and have an energy open to defend with. The problem ended up being that I just kind of got scared off by the early defensive cards and pivoted my game plan into this weird, like, half aggressive, half defensive turn. And I think ultimately um, that ended up being not the most efficient way to spend my energy.
Yeah, that's a pretty dangerous game to play when you're like riding on the edge of being early aggro, and then your opponent can respond pretty much in everything you do. It puts you in a bad spot to where you don't really know what to do. So I feel that.
Want to go over here real quick. You activate dormant, which the attack still goes through. And I even asked you. I think it's when I put my hand on the board. I was like, "Are you going to block though?" Because you didn't call it, and because this, like I said, this card will block 2 attacks, and that's really good with dormant. Actually, the more I think about it, but I think because once again you're in that mindset where since you've already called it, you're like, "No, I'm just leaving it how it is."
Yeah, when you asked if I wanted to block, I kind of like almost sensed a combat trick, and I was like, no, it'll be easier to combo out of the leader swing than it will this Piccolo, so I'll just block that. And ultimately, you ended up comboing up on the lead to where it was just as strong as the Piccolo.
Yeah.
So, again, I just kind of ended up misfiring here.
And because I couldn't do any more attacks, I wanted to go ahead and establish another form of protection, which is great since I'm playing a blue-yellow version of Stormfist. I could tech in these Krillins, which cost 1 yellow energy, and on play, you decide to snipe my Piccolo, which is, he served his purpose for 2 energy now.
Yeah, you got a lot of value out of it already. The reason I didn't hit this Stormfist is that this cooler deck has a ton of removal, and if I need to remove a 1-drop blocker, I'll be able to do so.
Yeah. So here I got a lot of options I could do this turn, but I will say this turn you're about to do is what makes, in my opinion, Dash Pack so good. You've already established the blocker on there, which can still swing, and in turn you get 3 cent, which is fantastic. One had Dimension Magic to go back to 3 energy just to feel safe. I think I ended up blocking this attack. Yeah. Just to get out of the way. Like, I don't want anything to come into range of killing it. And you have an Awake at this point, which is an interesting play because you've launched to go down pretty low life. Like, I let myself go down 3 life before I awaken. You went go down 2, but this card right here is just such a great card for this deck because it allows you. I think it's a double strike as well.
Mm-hmm.
And for 2 energy, I think it has another effect I'm not thinking of. Oh yeah, it's you reduce the Z energy cost for it by 1 for every Unison.
Yeah, every Unison in your drop area up to 2, and then when it comes into play, or it doesn't really do anything on play, but you can pay 2 more on an activate main and play a 3-drop Unison from your hand, and it'll have a marker on it, and then that will empower off of a Unison you already have on the board. And when you have a Unison go to the drop area, it's not going to come up here, but you get to choose one of your opponent's battle cards, ignoring barrier, and KO it. So for 4 energy, you're going to get your massive dual attack triple strike Unison, another double striker, a piece of removal, and it will also trigger your leader effect if it's the first Unison of the turn, and you'll draw a card. So tons of value for the 4 energy, 2Z energy here.
I will say, when you played it though, you were like, oh, that was a misplay because you could have just went straight into the chain, popped my blocker before I had a chance to even block with it, and then go into this right here. Now, the downside for this thing is that it does come and play with 1 marker, and it only has a power 4, and it does have a -4 for its effect. So, with that being said, it only has 1 marker left. I do, in my sideboard, keep Absolute Confidence. And you can see it's in my hand. And I had this whole turn planned out. Like, I thought for some reason it had 2 markers when we were doing this. Like, all right, cool. We'll rip a marker. And I think I paused. Like, oh, you only have 1 marker? Shit.
And I was like, yeah.
Because
so
I wanted to Senzu Bean and do something else in that combo step. And now I'm like, oh, okay.
I did see you sideboard, like you showed me like how many cards you were going to board before the game started, but I just totally forgot Absolute Confidence exists as a card. And I was like, I'm just going to combo to like a medium high level here, force him out, and then attack him again, get the rest of the combo power, and then kill him with the double strike Frieza, and then this cooler I had on the last energy as well. So this will let me recycle a 3-drop Unison, and I think you have to discard a card from hand. But from here, I don't even attack with it because you're just going to take the damage and then use those 2 life to kill me. So I'm just going to leave it up for combo power and hope the card I ripped out of your hand meant something.
And then, as you can see, it was the 6-drop negate.
Yeah, so you had plenty of ways to get out of that aggression, even if you didn't draw into the Absolute Confidence.
What was it? I blanked on. Never mind. Oh yeah, no, I have Absolute Confidence mainly because it has 2 effects, and we do have a lot of guys at our shop who tend to play a lot of Unisons. And yes, I do have 2 Smoke Dragons in my sideboard. I did not side them in against Jake mainly because the card I want to snipe with that is the 3-drop, and you can so easily establish Unison so quickly without expending your own energy by using the leader's swing early on that it didn't matter. And if I used 2 energies to snipe out of Unison, it just felt like it was useless.
Yeah, I would have loved if you did that.
So, but Absolute Confidence in other matchups allows me to bounce 3-drops, and it comes in handy for that purpose. But here you can see I comboed up, and then I tapped 3 to arrival the Kelpha, and just went for game on that double strike swing.
Big Kefla cleans it up.
Yeah. And with that's being said, that's today's matchup. Hope you all enjoyed. Keep in mind, there's stuff down below. Hit them. They're there, right? And thanks for tuning in. Bye.